Welcome to another episode of LFC Talk here at Hotel Tia. With me today I've got two fine gentlemen and we've got so much to talk about. Obviously we are talking a lot about the Champions League today, but we will also look a bit forward to matches to come. We'll talk a little bit about royalty and who knows where else this podcast will take us. But with us today we've got Kenny Robinson. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming all the way across the water.
Yep, thank you.
And as always, the main man, David Fairclough. I love you in green. He's got like this beautiful keeper green jumper on today.
There you go.
Finally not.
Tribute to Ray Clement.
Yeah, and finally not city blue because he loves the city blue jumper.
Really?
Oh yeah. He looks well in them, to be fair.
He looks good in everything.
Don't go too far.
Lads, we have to start with you, Kenny.
Okay.
How did you become a Red?
Well, I was born in Northumberland, Yorkshire. My dad was in the army, so luckily enough he had supported Liverpool his whole life, so I wasn't made to support Leeds or anything like that, which would have been devastating. So I was pretty much, I wouldn't say forced, but because my dad supported them, his dad supported them, yeah, that's pretty much, I just carried on. And you know, he obviously told me about the good old days and, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah, and then pretty much my whole life just, obviously when my dad being in the army, we lived in Canada and we lived in Germany for 7 years and Ireland and, you know, a couple of other places, so weren't able to get to as many games as I would have liked, but sort of always watched them at a farm. We were able to go to the UEFA Cup final in 2001 against Alaves, which is a highlight. But yeah, that's pretty much me, my story of how I started supporting them.
And how much time do you think Liverpool Football Club take of your week?
A ridiculous amount. I often get into trouble with my family because they take up so much of my time. There'd be family events that I've missed, or just because they crossed over with a game, and you know, my parents or, you know, partner or brother would, you know, often get annoyed because I just miss it, because I just, the thought of not watching a game, I just can't do it. I just cannot do it. It takes up so much from when I wake up to when I go to bed, and as soon as the full-time whistle goes, I'm straight away thinking about the next game, and yeah, it just completely takes over my whole life. Someone asked me a question the other day and said, what would you do if football disappeared from the world tomorrow? And honestly, it was a scary thought. It was a petrifying thought, and I said to him, don't ask me that ever again, because I just couldn't imagine it. It just doesn't. Imagine no football. I'm just stop and think. Imagine no football. Like, yeah, it's scary. It's scary. So short of it, it's everything, absolutely everything to me, on par with my family. Maybe me 9-year-old daughter's a bit ahead, but Liverpool are very, very, very close.
David, what would a life be without football?
Yeah, you know, I've never heard that sentiment made. It is an interesting thought. I was in a shop last week and before the weekend, and obviously all the football had been cancelled. I know a couple of people in the shop saying, oh, what am I going to do this weekend? There's no Premier League, because obviously the blackout on sports coverage. So it was a bit strange, actually. Nothing really to discuss, and nothing really to get you in front of the television. But I've never thought of it before, actually. It's an interesting idea. It'll look very, very different, that's for sure. Yeah, there'd be an awful lot of people in a sad state of affairs, I think, with no football.
Yeah, it would be, doesn't worth thinking about. And like I say, when the season's over, you know, we struggle with, you know, 8 weeks of no football. For it to be, I mean, COVID, when there was no football during COVID, it was just, I just did not know what to do with myself at all. And I remember there was a German Bundesliga game, was I think one of the first games that was back post-COVID. And I remember watching it, and I didn't care about any of the teams. I didn't have any affiliation towards any of the teams, but was so made up just to be watching some sort of football. I remember when the whistle went and I was so into it, and you know, it was, how long was it? Was it like 6 or 7 months? I can't remember how long football went on for, but yeah, the thought of it never being here, yeah, gives me shivers. So.
I think it's great to play, and it's great to go and watch your kids play football and those type of things. But if you're watching big time football, the one thing that I immediately thought of when you said about that, the watching the games in COVID, was the lack of atmosphere, you know, and German football was the first, I think, to be televised from my memory, and without fans, the football had no real interest really. Football is about the fan.
Yeah, I remember the Faroe Islands were really early too, so I think especially in Norway everyone was watching football, random football from the Faroe Islands, just to see something, see a ball rolling. Kenny, if you look back on everything you've seen and experienced with the Reds, what's your fondest memory or your strongest memory of being a Red?
My fondest memory is one that, I mean, compared to David, it's completely pales in comparison, but my one was the Istanbul Champions League final. Now, I think I was around 16 at the time. A lot of my friends were, you know, out. They liked their football, but they were out, you know, whether they were chasing girls or doing their own thing. They weren't as interested as I was. So my mum and dad went to the pub at the end of the court, at the end of the road, and I just decided to stay in and watch it. So obviously half time, 3-0, the door goes, mum and dad walk in, they brought in a chippy, they got some food, and you know, I was sat watching it, and we had scored. My mum and dad come in, and my dad went, "It's 3-1. I said, "Oh yeah, we scored early." And he's like, "Why haven't you told me?" You start shouting, like, why haven't you told me? Anyway, obviously it gets to extra time, 3-3, we're both stood up watching the TV, got to penalties, we won the penalties, and then we were just we were like linked arms, we were just, you know, like hugging each other and jumping around, and it's one of those memories that, you know, with your parents, or when your parents have gone, that, you know, I'll sort of always have. It was only the three of us, there wasn't loads of people, the atmosphere wasn't amazing, but you know, when they've passed and they've gone, I will have that memory of the three of us watching, you know, which probably our biggest game, maybe on par with Barcelona ever. And it was just, it's not a massive event, it's not a big, you know, sort of, you know, thing, but it was something that'll live in my memory forever. And obviously how great the game was as well. But that's the first thing that comes to my head. But we're so privileged as Liverpool fans that you can reel off so many moments, you know, Barcelona and even Dortmund to another extent. Alisson's header is quite underrated. That was a big moment.
Oh, I cried.
Yeah, exactly. So we are so privileged to support in whatever way we ended up supporting this team, to have came across this team, to support this team, that we have so many moments to choose from. Not every club are lucky enough to have that, but I'd probably say that moment just with me and my parents, I think, was the standout one.
It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. And you have so many memories with you and your dad, you know, watching football as well. It's something, you know, that you will carry with you, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. My dad had a season ticket on the third row of the what was then, I still think of it as the Kemlin Road stand, and you know, going there with my dad, I was there for a couple of key games. So when I'm thinking of the moments I shared watching Liverpool with my dad, I think of Liverpool coming back from 2-0 down to win the derby 3-2. John Toshak's second ever game for Liverpool, I think it was. First goal for Liverpool. I remember that vividly, and being so close to the pitch was a memory. And a strange one after left field was, I always remember watching. We got beat at home in the I think it was the European Cup by Ferencváros, 1-0, and we played on snow. And I remember that game. It stuck with me forever. You know, obviously in those days you could play football on snow. Doesn't happen no more. But they glided across the snow. We struggled Liverpool on the night, and it's one of those famous defeats Liverpool suffered at Anfield, and there won't be too many people probably remember it. 1967, from memory, that have that one little one in the back of their memory bank.
It's so nice. It's just like with football. I actually studied this when I wrote my first book. It's called Liverpool Hearts, and it's only out in Norwegian, so I'm not plugging it or anything. But one of the theories of the professor that I had with me as my main source in how football is impacting people's lives, he said, my theory is that football is improving your memory. And I said, how? And he said, well, because the stronger the emotions are in play when you experience something, the stronger the memory mark is in your memory line. And because football is so regularly in your life, you get so many memory marks because you have so many incidents or days in your life with strong emotions at play, and that will keep putting like memory marks, and that will help you sort your life, but also can bring you back to special days with special people. And it's also a way of remembering exactly what it was like to be 10, not what it was like to be 13 or 16, but you just think of that specific game when you were 10, and you would remember what it was actually like to be 10 years old. It's just a fascinating thing, and we're lucky as supporters to have that, constant memory lane pinches to sort of help us remember a life.
Especially with Liverpool, the amount of good moments we've had. There's so many, like you say, memory stamps, let's call it, in our brain, because we've been lucky that there's been so many decent, amazing moments that. Yeah, no, but I've never ever thought of it like that. But that's fascinating. I've never thought of it that way before. But
well, think about how many details you guys remember. Like you were watching that day with the game on the snow. All those nerdy details, and we're talking like hundreds and thousands of games.
So it was 800 years ago.
No, you're not that old.
I was 10. Well, I was 10.
But I'm just thinking how many hundreds of games we remember nerdy details. We remember who assisted the goal. We remember what minute it was in. It's like all these crazy little things that we remember because emotions were so strong in play. Which is great.
I think a few years ago, it's quite common now, I think, or more common. I think one or two clubs have used this as an opportunity to go and help people who are having memory problems, Alzheimer's and the like, and going along and speaking about football. And I'm not sure whether Liverpool actually do anything of the same, but there are certain clubs are known for getting out there and going and talking about football with old fans, and I think it is a great thing, and obviously those type of things do come back, whereas people obviously forget maybe short-term memory. Those great days that they experienced watching football sort of brings something back. It's a nice thing to be involved in, I think.
Well, when my granddad was ill, a couple of days before he passed away on this hospital, I remember going into the hospital, and one of the first things he said to me was, "What was the Liverpool result?"
Aww.
And he was ill, but it just shows that the memory of Liverpool, and it sticks in people's brains, even someone who, like you say, struggle with memory Alzheimer's or whichever, shows how important the club is, and how, because people remember what they ate, people remember what they wore that day, people remember seeing someone that they knew, or seeing something funny that happened, or like you say, so many little details, and you can do it now if you sit there and you think to yourself for a moment, you can imagine exactly where you were sat, who was next to you, what it looked like, but then there's some people who go, well, what did you do yesterday, or what did you do last week?
No chance.
Not a chance.
No.
Not a chance.
Well, that's so fascinating. And also, I was so lucky to be able to do the last official interview ever with both Ron Yates and Tommy Smith when they were already ill. with dementia, and to see what they actually still remembered, football related things they remembered, it's so powerful. So powerful to see. But anyway, let's move on to the current times. We probably remember them less than we remember the good old times, because if we go back to Napoli away, we probably just want to forget it because it's the greatest loss ever in Champions League for Liverpool Football Club. And I'm wondering, what on earth happened then, David? What went wrong?
Well, I think in the last couple of years, I think you could pinpoint a couple of sort of outrageous performances. The one at Aston Villa springs to mind. Where did that come from? And I think, and I'd like to hope that this was just an aberration against Napoli. It was extremely high profile, and there's been an awful lot written and spoken about what it meant for, what it means at the moment for Liverpool. But I like to think it was just one of those nights when it all went wrong. Some players just really went up to their level. I know we've had a kind of a sleepy start to the season, so I think people are trying to build more into it than maybe it actually is for me. But we were caught napping. That is one of the sort of the watchwords of from any manager, I suppose. Get out there and be on your toes right from the off, and maybe we weren't, and allowing them that opportunity to get their nose in front. It's always difficult to play against an Italian team anyway, and particularly in Italy. But if you give them a little bit of a head start, you make it doubly difficult. And I think it just went from bad to worse. So I'd like to think it was a one-off. It was. It's nothing to cause us sort of real angst. I know there are 1 or 2 points being made where we needs attention, and I'm sure Jurgen will address that. But I'm inclined to say, it wasn't the end of the world. It was a bad performance. Put it behind us and move on.
That's music to my ears. But then also, Kenny, Napoli was really switched on. They wanted this so much more than us.
Yeah, it's so easy to, especially with how good we are, it's so easy. The first thing you do is most fans look at your own team. You look at, okay, we've been bad, as opposed to, like you say, complimenting the opposition. I think Napoli was a bit of a come to Jesus moment for Klopp and the team, where I think the previous games Klopp was able to sort of say to himself and maybe the players, there's mitigating circumstances with, with injuries, maybe a bit of physical and mental fatigue possibly. So I think he was able to maybe, not necessarily excuses, but use reasons for the past results. But I think the Napoli game was probably the game where he went, right, I'm gonna, there's a few things that I need to address because the performance wasn't up to scratch. It's the basic things, like the work rate, the work rate of the squad wasn't what we're used to. And this team for so many years, it must be so hard mentally to every season go again and go again. Man City with almost an endless fund, buying a couple of players. The players have got to look at that and then go, okay, we're going to go again. We're going to, run like mad for 90 minutes. We're not going to give up. And a couple of years, that's hard. But for what this team have done for so long, it must be mentally tiring. It must be mentally exhausting. And I think we just needed that sort of that reset. And Ajax was definitely, which I'm sure we'll come on to, Ajax was definitely almost like a new starting block, almost like a reset of, okay, the Ajax game is exactly what we expect from the team. Napoli is the complete opposite of what we don't expect, similar to United. But Ajax, okay, this is what we expect, the basics, the pressing as a team, the defending as a team, which has never normally been an issue. But Napoli was just, I think it needed to maybe have that type of performance for maybe the team and Klopp to go, okay, that's it now. We don't ever play as bad as this. We move on, and Ajax was a big sign of that, I think.
I think the one thing about you mentioned there, Ken, about the intensity and stuff like that. Unfortunately, that's the responsibility of all Liverpool players, and I think intensity certainly last season was enormous. Playing every game as a cup final from virtually Christmas inward. I think that is what Liverpool ultimately is all about. And for some, it did look like some of them maybe there has to be a reset. And we're not going to address all the issues today, but I think we can't use the tiredness thing though as too much of an excuse. I think it is difficult to play at the level that Liverpool played last season, year after year. But that's what's required, and the great Liverpool teams of the past were able to do that year after year, and that marks you out as a Liverpool player, and whether you'll have a long and sort of successful career at Anfield.
But then again, I'm thinking Kenny's right in terms of the mental exhaustion, because, as you said, we played every single game to the bitter end, fighting for 4 trophies. Never happened before. We never played that many games before. And I think if the outfall of at least one out of the 2 major ones had gone Liverpool's way, I think that would have generated a lot more energy. But I think the fact that we just came back with the little cups, and it's probably not nice to call the League Cup and the FA Cup for little cups, but compared to the Premier League and the Champions League, and when you lose it, by just one ridiculous goal, both the season and the Champions League, it probably feels so draining to have given it all and then you're just left with the little trophies.
I'm inclined to think old school and be a little bit. I think you're being more generous than I would be. I think having been brought up in an environment surrounded by all the names that we, Shankly, Fagan, Ronnie Moran, where you get nothing for yesterday. It's tomorrow that counts.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to say that is what is part of being a thing of Liverpool, and I'm not. And I think we can find an excuse and say they played to such a level, but I think you can't afford to say, well, okay, that was last season. We might give it a little bit of a break this year. You can't lower your standards. It's just not. We're just in an environment that just doesn't accept. Second, whoever you want to attribute to, Shanks certainly first was first, second was nowhere. And if you're not prepared to say, well, I'm going to be first, again and again,
I think what surprised me as well is to maybe not necessarily go back on my point, but to counter my own point is the trophy parade. The players were so invigorated by that. Henderson, Robertson, Klopp himself. These players got interviewed, and they all said we weren't expecting what we got from this parade. We won the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, and just missed out on the Champions League and the league. But they weren't expecting so many people. So I thought they would be invigorated, and maybe the mental fatigue would be gone, or maybe most of it gone because of the positivity at the end of the parade. But obviously the Fulham game sort of started, and it didn't look quite like the team. But Klopp has turned around before. That season we finished third. It wasn't looking very good at one point, and we somehow managed to finish third, and only 1 or 2 wins behind United, who everyone was saying had a really good season. So you've got full faith in Klopp and the players, full faith in the players. Henderson will be back when the international break's over. There'll be a couple of players back, and like I say, the Ajax I think could be a real sort of kickstarter, because that's the sort of standard now going forward for the rest of the season.
So what was different with Ajax? What happened there that made the team look themselves again?
I think a kick up the backside would have certainly been delivered. I think it was unacceptable, the level of performance in Napoli. So much so, all the speculation and the drama, the questions that were thrown at the manager, about the manager, and there's never any doubt that Jurgen Klopp it is, you know, think of Liverpool without Jurgen is, you know, it doesn't happen. So and I'm sure Jurgen is an extremely driven man, and he would have made that you know, known. I think in the week that followed, I think it was kind of fortunate maybe that the Wolves game was postponed. I think it didn't do anybody any harm. I think it gave him a chance to work on some bits and pieces in Melwood, and or the academy rather. I'm a nightmare.
Kirby anyway.
But
Active training centre.
yeah, exactly. It doesn't slip off the tongue quite like the other one. But no, I think the postponement didn't do us any harm, and I think it did look more like what we expect, and it's a good opportunity to, you know, to under the lights, Champions League night, atmosphere is fantastic. There is that sort of, you know, I don't know, it brings out the best, you know, not always the best, but brings out somewhere like the best most times. And yeah, and that was great. The reaction was good, and you'd like to think that the point has been made and the penny's dropped.
Also, I would add two key people into the team in terms of Thiago. I think he, you know, in form and playing full games is like the missing jigsaw puzzle in the middle there. And also Matip, you know, it makes the defence more solid. It seems like Virgil and him has a much better sort of team communication going on.
I think you're right. I think in this period that we're in, you know, there's a time. Thiago was so vital to Liverpool. I mean, it is. I think, you know, without him, we look like we're a boat without a rudder. So I think there's no real direction, and Thiago makes all the difference. And Matip adds that extra type of cover. He seems to sniff danger more than Joe Gomez. I think, you know, we all know, and there's much being said about Liverpool's vulnerability down the right hand side, and it does exist. There's no two ways about it. There is an issue that has to, you know, Liverpool have to be aware of. With Canate and Matip, Liverpool look far better and secure, I think, in those positions. So it was important that at least one of them was back. I think, you know, when Canate is fully fit, I think he is. I think he is, for me, he's ahead of Joel Matip. But certainly on the night, those two changes were vital.
I quite often go between my favourite free transfer between Milner and Matip, because obviously Matip was a free transfer, and to me Matip is so important, because it strikes me as Van Dijk really respects Matip and really appreciates Matip as a centre back. I know he's a big fan of him anyway, but so that's quite telling how highly Van Dijk rates him. And Thiago, I was just about to say with Thiago, he is so important that I think that's the Klopp's next thing to sort of work out, is when Thiago doesn't play, then we need to still be able to perform at a certain level even without him, because Thiago is soon going to get to be a point where he's a bit of a luxury player just because of injuries. We're not going to be able to play him every game, especially with the amount of football we play at the moment. We are going to need to find some way of being able to fill that void when he doesn't play, because he came on against, it was the game he come on against for like 30 minutes, and he made more tackles than the whole of the defence just in those 30 minutes. That's big, and that's also, you know, a bit damning of the defence and the other midfield, but it shows how important he is. When we signed him, I didn't realise he was someone who tackled as much. I thought he was a guy, you know, fancy, made a few passes, you know, but he will throw himself into a challenge, and he's so important. So I think in January or the end of the season, or maybe there's a player in there at the moment who he thinks can do a similar role. Look, there's not loads of Thiagos out there. You can't just go, okay, we're going to buy Thiago, you know, 2.0, but there needs to be something, because like Dave said, it's completely different. It's completely different when he's not in the team, but he was big, Matip was big, and we defended as a team, we pressed as a team, and just the general understanding and what's required was there. And again, to Dave's point, I think they had a rocket up them, which was much needed, and it showed. It wasn't 10 out of 10, but you're not going to go from the 5 out of 10 of Napoli straight up to 10 out of 10 amazing performances. It's going to be a slow sort of build, I think.
On Monday, we will have the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, one of the biggest figures in the world in modern times. And it's interesting to be in Liverpool at this moment as a Norwegian, because we also have a royal family. We've grown up with that, and our royal family is really sort of down to earth and quite cool. The British royal family is a different league in many ways, good and bad, I will say. And a lot of people feared that there would be some booing before the Ajax game on Tuesday, and the Wolves game were called off in respect of the Queen. And then the Chelsea game is obviously also called off. Were you surprised that everyone paid the respect, David?
I don't think it was 100%. I'll be honest. I think it's a discussion for another day. Why? I don't think that. I think the Queen should get 100% backing and respect. Certainly, I'm very much in favour of the royal family. Can't think of Britain without a royal family, if I'm honest. I think what's the alternative? And when we've seen plenty of people who head up countries, and even cities, who I would not want to put I wouldn't want to put our country in an individual's hand. I'm quite happy to have the royal family, and I think it should be supported. And I'm a little bit disappointed actually, but that we're included in the discussion, and has been talked about in various newspapers since. I think at times I believe we've let ourselves down. I think I'll be honest. I'm totally honest. I think it's disappointing. I don't think it would happen with over other with certain other issues.
But it is that we're not English, we are Scouse that comes out, isn't it, Kenny?
Yeah, I won't lie. Before the game, I was concerned that there would be just booing throughout the whole of it. Now, I would say there was definitely a small portion who didn't treat it with the respect that maybe it should have. But because I was so concerned that it was going to be 90% boos, that when it was maybe 70% or 75% that did respect it, I was sort of a bit more. It didn't annoy me as much because my expectations were maybe low, not of the people of Liverpool, because the people of Liverpool have their reasons why, right or wrong. But I thought we proved a lot of people wrong, because the general consensus was that we were going to boo throughout the whole of it. And I think again people judge Liverpool fans or judge Scousers, and I think we proved a lot of people wrong. Of course there was a few reports that half of it was getting booed, which wasn't the case, but I could also understand Dave's point of the people who were booing did let themselves down. I think you can have your opinion, but for the sake of a minute, you don't need to. I don't think you need to boo it. I think you can have your opinions, but just show that respect for that, for that amount of time, and then just move on. No one's going to be pointing at you or judging you because you were quiet for a minute and respecting someone who passed away. But it was better than what I thought it was going to be, but maybe not as good as it should have been.
I agree with that, and I think I really think politics and sentiments towards the royal family shouldn't be brought into the football stadium. I really don't believe that is the place to. There are plenty of other opportunities to go on a march if you want to, or and there are countless of those. But to make an issue of it at a football stadium, I just don't believe it is right. I really don't. And as you say, Ken, for 1 minute, I think, you know,
Just stay quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be, because of these postponed matches, both now Wolves and Chelsea, it's going to be jammed into such a tight schedule already because of the World Cup. If we look ahead to Brighton, 1st October, a home match here, a classical 3 o'clock kickoff if I'm remembering right. Brighton has started off really, really well. I mean, Brighton is the only 1 out of 3 teams who've let in less goals than Liverpool. So we have some positives. I mean, it's actually just Brighton and Wolves and Tottenham. They've let in less goals than Liverpool. We only let in 6, which is not only really, it's quite poor for Liverpool. We're used to our clean sheets. But City's let in 6 goals as well. And we've scored the second most goals, but that's obviously thanks to a certain 9-0 happening, but it doesn't matter. That's what's on the table right now. So we are the second most scoring team. Only City scored 1 more, I think, if I remember right. And then, only let in 6. But Brighton's let in only 5, and they are 4th right now. They've had a fiery start, haven't they?
well, credit to Brighton. You have to say, since Graham Potter arrived, that there has been a marked improvement, you know, the way that they play, and they've had plenty of admirers. The fact now that he's passed, you know, on to Chelsea, it'll be interesting to see how Brighton continue, whether or not, because he's taken his staff with him. I mean, they will leave behind ideas and theories, that's for sure. But whether or not that leadership that Potter has given them, what the impact of that will be it will be interesting. So it's going to be a real test. Brighton have really they're fighting above their weight clearly. You know, to be 4th in the table at the moment is huge credit to them. But it's going to be a little bit of an unknown, and not much opportunity really for us to. I mean, when we play Brighton, as you say, we'll have had a big long break. Hopefully everything will be sort of running smoothly at that point. And they proved difficult last year, Brighton, at Anfield. And, you know, you don't know quite what to expect. This one is going to be really an unknown, I think, will they have a manager firmly in place, or will it still be under sort of an interim sort of situation?
Well, it's I think it's actually Adam Lallana who's going to be managing that day
At the moment.
Yeah, obviously, unless they get someone in, which will be interesting. Now, if I was Adam Lallana, I'd be pretty much saying to them, let's carry on what we were doing. You know, we know how we were playing under Potter. Let's just try and, you know, do that. I think an early goal is really big. If we get an early goal, will their mentality sort of, you know, will their heads go down? Will they go, okay, well, we haven't got Potter here, and will they also think dangerously, is it a bit of a free hit for us? Is anyone really expecting us to beat Liverpool or get a point against Liverpool when we don't have a permanent manager in? There's a bit of upheaval at the moment. There's a bit of, you know, unknown about the club. So it can be a dangerous game, but it is a game that, again, with Potter gone and that sort of confusion and, you know, sort of, you know, mystery with the club, I think we should be beating them. And also, like I say, the break, a decent amount of break. I think there's a couple of players back from, possibly back from injury. Thiago hasn't made the Spain squad, so Thiago will have had a bit more rest, which again is important. Henderson won't be playing for England, which is again important. He'll be back. So I think after the Ajax game, it's gonna start looking a lot more positive. I think you're going to be looking at the bench going, wow, that bench is a lot stronger than what it was against Napoli. But if Brighton play like they have been, and what they can, then it'll be a dangerous game. But I'm fairly confident.
And then we have Rangers after that on the Tuesday, and they haven't had the best start, to be honest, for them. They've let in 7 goals and haven't scored 1 for the first 2 Champions League group stage games.
I've picked up on Rangers a lot since the Stevie connection. They're not top quality at all. I watched the game the other night with Napoli, I know KB battled for a while, which they would do at home because you know they've got great support there. But ultimately, class showed, and Napoli do have a classy front line and some good midfield as well. And ultimately, it was no surprise to see Rangers beaten very, very comfortably, even though the goalkeeper, say, 2 penalties. Yeah, it'll be an exciting night. I mean, first visit for Rangers to Anfield. I mean, there have been links drawn to the Scottish teams to Liverpool down the years. They're going to bring many more than will get in for sure. I think there'll be an invasion, if I'm honest. But it's a great opportunity for us as champion. As the Champions League program goes, 2 games against Rangers at this point. I mean, I'm looking to think Liverpool can take 6 points out of these next 2 games. That puts you on 9, and most of your work is done. Then you've got your 2 games with Ajax and Napoli again. I think the fixtures have fallen quite well for us. Really, we blew it in Napoli, obviously, but now I think the programme looks quite good.
Yeah, I think with Rangers it's just a matter of playing to our abilities, not playing the occasion. We know we're better. Don't get too, because they're going to be loud. Their weigh-in's going to be loud. They're going to try and make things difficult for us. We just need to stay calm. Stay collected. We know we're better. Like you say, the quality does show. Napoli's quality did show. Rangers did have a couple of chances, but Napoli, at the end of the day, with a better team, that's just what we need to do. Quieten their away and down, maybe get an early goal, and then, I think at home it'll be a lot easier. Away at Rangers, they're going to be really loud. Their support is really good, but at home, I think quality should be, and again with all the players back, the squad looking better. Hopefully 3 points from Brighton, confidence will be up. It'll be a great game though. It'll be really, really good to watch. I'm actually really excited. One of my friends is a big Rangers fan. He's lived in Liverpool for a decent number of years now, so he cannot wait. He's always wanted us to play against him just so he can try and get one over on me. But no, it'll be really good, and we haven't played them. When was the last time we played them?
No, played Rangers.
No, so it'll be and the Rangers fans will be okay. They'll be good. I think they'll be in decent spirits, but hopefully.
I think as you say, the occasion. The key thing will be the occasion, and the thing about Champions League, it doesn't matter whether you win 1-0. It's a win's a win. And class will ultimately win over against Rangers. I'm sure of that, because they're poor. In reality, they're not great. They're not great. At this point, at this moment, I don't think they're really great. They show some great character to qualify ultimately through the qualifying rounds, but class will tell. And if you beat Rangers 1-0 or 2-0, it won't matter. A win will be a win, and that's the key. But the occasion, Liverpool should have enough experience to put that aside and to work out what is needed and how to react.
Well, I am sure we will react really smoothly on October the 1st when we meet Brighton, and also when we meet Rangers on the Tuesday the 4th. Until then, everyone listening all over this planet of Earth, thank you so much for listening or watching. If you watched us on YouTube, you can also go in on Hotel Tia's YouTube channel and see this program in particular with color TV, and see the beautiful green jumper, the tribute to Ray Clemens on David today. For once, not like blue, we like that a lot. My name is Ragnhild, Lund, Ansnes, and until next time, take care and all the best.